io sono una regista di coincidenze, veramente, è sbagliato, perché per me io ero una danzatrice, una studentessa di danza classica a Roma. Sì, perché il mio marito lavora al Centro Sperimentale di Cinematografia a Roma, fa screenwriting, è un professore di sceneggiatore, lui era un sceneggiatore e fa un directing class for actors, directing per attrici. And so I was working, trying to make enough money per comprare il mio punte, le scarpe di punte per pagare i maestri, ma era molto difficile perché Roma è una città un po' cara e anche per me quando io sono una studentessa non c'è molto soldi, so diventerei una tata per bimbi italiani, un babysitter e dopo una truccatrice al centro sperimentale. They were always asking me, ma chi sei? Sei un'attrice coreana o un'attrice cinese? And I was like, no, io sono la truccatrice da Lao. And they said, dove Lao? Ma dove Lao? I was like, in vicino di Thailand. And they went, oh, okay. But questa è la mia prima volta di imparare qualcosa di cinema e cinema italiani, perché prima di questo tempo io non so niente di film, io non so i film classici o chi è Fellini, io non so, ma adesso guarda, sono alla scuola di Fellini, gli altri maestri e after that, it was just like, okay, io sono una truccatrice. I'm working on set. It was fine. And I went to Laos to see my father. And when I went to Laos, it was by accident as well because he said he was getting married again because my mother passed away. And I was like, oh, crap. Il mio papà diventa pazzo perché chi è questa donna? Questa donna è lo stesso anni con me. And I was like, oh my God, my dad's gone crazy. He's married like a working girl, you know. So I said to my husband, dobbiamo andare adesso, in Lao, adesso. So, prendiamo il nostro cane. We went to Lao and she was okay. My trophy mother, she's okay. But then my husband started to look for ways to help film projects in Lao, and he found Lao Art Media. And they were so happy to meet him. They're like, oh, yes, please help us. We don't have content. We need content. And he's like, oh, yeah, I can write. And scrivo io le storie per te and the scripts. And they're like, fantastic. Noi abbiamo bisogno di registi. Tu sei la nuova regista adesso. And he's like, no, 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 no. I'm not a regista. I'm not. I'm a screenwriter. And they went, oh, peccato. And I think he was like, oh shit, now they won't work with me anymore. So then he said, lei farlo. Lei ha lavorato in arte, he said, performing arts, sul spettacoli. So lei c'è l'esperienza, lei fa e lei parla lao. Lei parla lao bene. And I was like, I taught bambini how to plie and how to like dance ballet. I didn't work in performing arts. I've never worked on a film except, putting powder on someone's nose. And then I made my first film. That's how I became a director. Ushidente. Well, in the past, we had a lot of cinemas. We had propaganda films, and we had like slice of life films, documentaries, and a lot of just old royalist films too, as well. Because in the past, we did have a lot of access to some equipment, and we were a francophone nation. We watched a lot of westerns. I remember my father. I'm obsessed with popcorn. And my father is obsessed with film because as a little boy he would want to watch westerns, and we had these amazing standalone theaters in Vientiane, and he would try to go buy a ticket to watch a western by selling popcorn. And when he made enough money to go inside, he would watch like a Clint Eastwood movie or John Wayne. And so when I became a filmmaker, he was just like, wow, you make films, but they're not westerns like his. And when the revolution happened, when the party change happened, we had lost everything. We lost media. A lot of films were destroyed or not even kept. The Department of Cinema has an archive where they are trying to find our old works to put into safe conditions, in like un magazzino con clima, qualcosa così, and they're finding like old destroyed prints, and it wasn't even so much that the communists wanted to destroy our old arts, but it's just that people didn't know what to do with it. We were in such a bad time that, we didn't have any way to preserve our old films or to make new films. So from the 70s until we had 1985, one art house film, a black and white art house film called Wedding. And then the mid 90s was the next film. So 30 years with no film because nobody knew how to do it or what to do or where to go next. And at that point, it wasn't even the fault of the government. It was just, we were lost. We were floating in space, So my bosses, my producers from Loud Art Media were the first to make a commercial film. It was a rom-com, or like a romance drama. And that was Sabay Dilong Pabang in the 90s. And then Dear Sister was a 13th film. And to date, we have maybe 16, 17 films, especially if you don't count the edutainment NGO type films, In Lao c'è tanti film che sono una coppia di altre culture, perché noi abbiamo primo film thailandese o film di Cina or di Hollywood, and a lot of the filmmakers want to make films like that because they don't know. It's not that they don't know better, that's all they know. And so they're trying to imitate le altre culture, and it's not authentic, it's not us, it's not our lives. Or some people are trying to make films that are, how can I say this, pandering to a certain audience. And that to me is not truthful either. Why don't you just make a good story that is very Lao? And so I make ghost films, as you saw, I make ghost films. Why do I have to make my ghost film look like a Japanese ghost film? I'm not Japanese, and what they do is very awesome, very good. I'm not Korean either. I'm not going to do a Korean film, and I'm not Thai. So what I'm going to put on screen is what is Lao, and that is what people should see because our country can stand out too. Why not? And so that's what I meant by that. It's why can't we have koze? Why can't we have things or special particular elements that are ours alone? And this is something that I think all the Southeast Asian countries need to start to think about and do because our differences are what makes us extremely beautiful. And now I'm working a lot with a lot of co-producers and a lot of people who support me on kind of bringing this influx of new art from Southeast Asia and showing people that Southeast Asia has a lot of similarities and a lot of talent, but a lot of differences too. And that's not a bad thing, We're never going to be Hollywood, so it's all right. Tutti le registe c'è un vision, right? They have their view, their perspective. And why would you even make a film if you can't imbue your own personal perspective and your own vision into it? What's the point? Again, then it becomes an imitation of some other director or an imitation of some other country again. So for me, it's so important that I am able to put my perspective out and my view of what I consider Lao out to the world. And I think that my other fellow directors should do it too. In every country, even in Italy, Sorrentino cannot be the only director out of Italy. There has to be voices that are unique and on their own because if everyone started to imitate only him, then people would lose interest in Italian films because they'd say, oh, well, then it's all the same, right? And so this is a part that I think all young filmmakers and all aspiring filmmakers need to do is how to imbue their stories with their own voices and their own views. And I'm not just even talking about Lao films. I want to do all kinds of films. I would love to make a film in Italy. I would love to come back to Rome. Se possiamo fare un film a Roma, it would be so figo, Can I say that on TV? it could be fucking figo. And why not? We should be able to do many stories and bring our spark into it and bring it to life. How awesome would it be if I could make a Lao film in Europe? And that's one of the projects that I'm working on in the future. This is a trilogy. Gently, my first DIY film was la storia di una donna in la famiglia di lei in Lao. And Dearest Sister, sorella carina, right? No, Cara sorellina è la storia di due donne come esiste in society of Lao dentro di la paese in Lao. And the third one in the trilogy, not the next film I'm working on yet now, is I want to do a Lao woman in her place in a foreign society, perhaps in a place with snow, somewhere completely opposite of Lao. And why not? Like, we should be able to make many kinds of stories. This was a very difficult thing, approaching the very complex and complicated facets of this film, because it started out horror, and like I said to my screenwriter, who's also my husband, I want to make a film about lottery ghosts, and I want to film, and then somebody's got to get hit by a shovel, and blah, 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 and it's very random, and my poor husband, the screenwriter, is just like, okay, like taking notes, And then I said, it needs to be based on a ballet, because all my films are basically based on ballets, inspired by. But it's when we're in the middle of the writing process that it starts to become really rich and deep, where we put the basic elements. For instance, Dearest Sister, the first thing that went down on paper, besides Lottery Ghost, was the ending. I had the ending before I had the entire film. The ending was set for me. I knew it before I knew the beginning. I knew it before I knew the middle. And so that's what we did, was, okay, this is the ending that I'm going to work towards. And then the rest of the story just fell into place. And as you start to build these characters and create the locale for them, then, sitting together with the writer, you start to understand that we should point this out and we should put this in the script, because it's a reality in the life that we live in Lao. Or he'll write something and say, no, this is how she should react, because this is how Lao women would react to a statement like that in a situation like that. But it changes again. It changes on set. I let my actors improvise so much. I don't always make them say exactly what's on the page, so then we organically start to build a new story on set, and then it changes again. Because with my, quando io faccio il montaggio, cambia ancora, perché c'è 3 volte che facciamo una storia con la sceneggiatore, a produzione e anche in montaggio. And so this teamwork that I love, because the whole team makes a film. It's not only me, I've always loved horror in general. I mean, the main reason is because with the horror genre, or just genre film in general, you can stretch past boundaries that people set. In drama, there's rules, don't do this, don't do that, or maybe you can't get away with that, or that's ridiculous. And in romance and comedy, the same. But with genre, the audience comes in unprepared almost. What they are prepared for is to be completely shocked, and for you to take them on a twisty ride that they cannot expect, and it's unpredictable. And this is something I love about the genre, the genre stories, is you can do almost anything. You can take your story and you can expand it so far, and people are willing to go along with it. You can make commentaries like in Dearest Sister. You can do something completely crazy and violent, and it's fine, because the audience is willing to accept it, and the audience is also very intelligent. People think that the genre audience are just people who like to see people getting brutally murdered, or etc. No, the genre audience is actually one of the few audiences that have broad experience in different cultures, because they're watching so many films from other cultures because of genre, because they're finding it interesting. They watch Italian genre, they watch Japanese genre, they watch our films, and that's super important to me. But that and my dad raised me in a really inappropriate way. When I was a little girl, we had video stores, you remember the smell of the video store, you walk in, that old carpet smell, and he didn't speak a lot of English, and so he would pick one movie, and then he would let me and my older brother pick a movie. But he didn't know, maybe kids shouldn't watch that. He just let us pick movies, and when we're looking through the shelves at all the films, the covers, we're just picking them by the cover. Which films have the most interesting covers? Genre films, So here I was watching Freddy Krueger or Jason, or because the covers were so cool. And then often my dad would just not really supervise us, so maybe that's the reason why I do genre too. And I'm a ballerina. All ballet is genre.
So in Suspiria or Dario Argento?
In fact, I actually really do. It's a classic. And actually, I like Dario Argento's Suspiria for a different reason, not just because of the ballet. I like it because it was so stylized from that period, People can't do that anymore. If you were to do that now, it would be either a bad imitation of that, or you're just really trying too hard to be kitschy, But what they did was just they were so experimental. And again, this is genre where they could be experimental. How cool is that, I've thought about it a lot because you're right. To the point where I have a friend named Kirla Janice, and she works with Monster Fest in Australia. And she and a group of women have started like a whole group that they've written books about it, and it's like monstrous feminine, they call it, you know. And I don't know why, but even in Asia, which is known for being quite male-oriented, a lot of our genre films, you know, sempre il fantasma è una donna. O il mostro è una donna, forse la uccitore non è un uccitore, ma uccitrice. You know, she's a murderer, and I don't know why that is. But I wonder if people aren't just like intimidated by the power and the force that lies within a woman naturally, and maybe that's why it portrays really well in genre, you know. I mean, I laugh. This is kind of a joke, but I always laugh whenever I'm doing press or I'm at a film festival. I always say, you know, my husband gets so nervous because I'm always traveling by myself. He's like, I always feel like I'm kind of releasing you, a feral animal, into the world. So I guess maybe that's why I'm perfect for genre. I'm quite feral. My next film, il mio terzo progetto, è un film science fiction, a thriller. And, you know, we were talking about Coherence, how it's one of our favorite films, and it does also have time travel involved in it, too. And this film is much heavier than Dearest Sister, actually. It's a film about what happens when you are forgotten and isolated, and you're left in a world that is crumbling apart because outside forces have started making decisions for you because they deem that you are not prepared or worthy to make your own decisions. Like many, you know, stranieri che arrivano in Lao fanno così, you know, that's how they behave, that's how they treat us often. So I was shooting Dearest Sister, and the opening scene in that village, it's only like 20, 30 minutes away from the capital. Literally, and you saw it. It's like dirt road, no electricity, no running water in the house, and you know, it's un paese like contadine, molto campagna. And I was filming, and I thought, this is 2016 or 2015 at the time. How is it that we still have places like this? It's, you know, it's incredible, and I can't judge them for that. But at the same time, it started to make me think, Lao in 2065, what will it be like? How will we be different? How will we change? And so this film that I've been working with Aurora Media and started to brew into a time travel thriller, a really dark time travel science fiction thriller in the countryside of Lao. Oh, I've been loving it. Udine has been a fantastic festival. Actually, era il mio sogno per andare in Udine, perché lo sapevo che c'è un festival qua, è un festival molto grande, molto spacca per film asiatico. And I was like, that is my goal, I want to go there. But I had no idea what it was like. I had no clue. I just knew that it was a very big European festival for, you know, lungometraggi orientali, così. And so I met Sabrina and Thomas at many events before, and I kept hearing about Far East Film Festival in Udine, and so many of my friends had gone and had great experiences, and so it became like, you know, sempre un sognava di me andare in Udine. And so when I submitted the film, I was like, oh, you know, con diti incrociati, like, please, I really want to make it. And when I got selected, I nearly died, you know, I was so happy. And everything's been wonderful. I came, c'est la prima volta di c'è un film laotian qua in Udine a fare il Film Festival. So per me è molto, molto speciale e sento molto orgoglio e felice perché non lo sognavo mai che a questo punto posso arrivare qua in Udine. Ma adesso guarda, ci siamo!
Con un film molto molto bello.
Grazie.
Grazie mille a te, è stata una bellissima intervista. Grazie.
Grazie a te, ciao.